Dapper Don Podcast. Dapper Don Podcast. This is your boy Dapper Don Diz.
Welcome to the Dapper Don Podcast. It's your boy Dapper Don Diz. And man, what kind of boss is you? You gave your dog a Draco. Real bosses put their dogs on the payroll. End quote, Yo Gotti. These was wise words from Memphis rapper Yo Gotti. And this is the type of mentality that we need in the community, that embedded in the growing trend of young, impressionable boys doing your dirty work. What am I talking about? In hip-hop, having an overwhelming number of artists linked to homicides committed to or by teenagers. When Vlad TV was talking to Boosie laughed when Vlad was shocked that the murder of Pop Smoke, a man barely in his 20s, was shot by a group of teenagers, saying he was used to killers being 16, 17 years old. Black children account for 41% of gun-related deaths in America in totality. 86% of those being boys, according to the nationshealth.org. Does this mean that hip-hop takes advantage of young men's need to guidance and acceptance? Now, mind you, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that all deaths is hip-hop related. There's a lot that goes on. There's domestic violence in households. There's kids playing with guns. It's not always gang violence, but it just honestly is. I would imagine it has to be most of it. But my question is, does hip-hop take advantage of young men's need for guidance and acceptance? And the answer is yes. For years, we have been saying protect black women. We should also be saying direct black men, especially the youngins who want to get down with the cause. Today, we'll discuss 3 cases where young black men were the victims of blind allegiance to distrustworthy men. So, of course, the first one I got to bring up is YFN Lucci. See, YFN Lucci was arrested on felony murder charges earlier this week. I like to say January 16th, 2021, if you're watching this. And, of course, you're watching this in the future, right? And he's been locked up for being the driver in the murder. One, I already can tell you, whatever's going on, it looks pretty bad from where I'm sitting January 18th, 2021. It looks pretty rough as far as what might have happened that night. But just to give you a quick rundown on the whole YFN Lucci case. So apparently YFN Lucci was arrested, like I told you, for a shooting that happened in December 10th. Apparently, what they're saying is he was sliding through a rival's neighborhood. His partners jumped out, started busting at some rivals. Why is YFN Lucci doing this? I do not know. And there was a video of a guy named Adams, whose last name was Adams, and he was just hours before the shooting was like, yeah, we gonna F this city up. We gonna F this city up. This city in question being Atlanta, Georgia. So they saying, he was saying on the video, we gonna F this city up. I'm guessing everybody thought he was gonna talk some music. But nah, they was talking about sliding. I don't know why. I don't know what could have possibly happened. But they saying he got out shooting. Well, whoever they shot at in the rival neighborhood returned fire. End up hitting two of the dudes with him. So not only did YFN Lucci pull off, right? So he pulled off because he's the driver. It's his car. That makes sense, right? Not only does he pull off, but just a few blocks down the road where you just slid on somebody, where you just hit the whole block. You just spun the whole bean. You spun the bean on the whole crew. You left your partner in rival territory where he just did dirt at. You left him there with a bullet in his head for him to die out. Guess who helped him? Some random woman. Shout out to black women. Shout out to black women for just being black girl magic. Did more for him than your own partner. They pushed him out the car. They were driving off, and they pushed him out the car. They didn't take him to a hospital. They didn't drop him off anywhere where he could get help. They just pretty much left him there to die. I don't know what could have possibly happened. And another one was dropped off at the fire station. I guess he must have been more of a friend. I don't know. He was still able to talk and and function. So he made it. He pulled through, and we all initially thought that maybe this was somebody YFN Lucci snatched up. But apparently they saying allegedly. This case is still unfolding. Like I tell you, it's January 18th. I'm sure more is going to come out about this case, but more is already unfolding. But from what it has unfolded, YFN Lucci just left his partner there. He slid on him, threw dog out the car, and this was December 10th. And police been wanting him and 2 other men connected in the murder. One of the men was a 23-year-old and the other one was a 17-year-old. Now, they released the name of the 17-year-old. His last name was Pitts. I forget what his first name was, but let's just call him Pitts. Pitts is from Miami, so naturally to avoid the murder, he fled to Miami where he was apprehended by Miami PD, by PD. Now, this is tough because now that you fled, also, guns is already involved, so it's a federal case, but you also cross state lines in evading, this murder. So I don't know if that plays into it, but they all getting charged with the same thing: felony murder, felony assault, and some gang activity. I didn't know Atlanta had gang laws, but, apparently they do. Now, so Pitts was involved, and this was something that made me think. This was a thing that made me also think back to what I was saying about young teenage boys being involved. A 23-year-old, I believe Adams was in his late 20s, early 30s. And the dude that got shot and dropped off was 32 years old. All of these guys was way too much more older than this 17-year-old who's wrapped up in his case. You would think that they would make more of an opportunity. It's already slimy what you did to your partner, but now you involving somebody who really had nothing, who really you should have been put in a better position. And he's caught up in his life might be gone, bro. If he get 20, he's getting out at 37. If he get 20, he's getting out at 37. He get 15, he's getting out at my age. Imagine me just now being a free man since being 17. I wouldn't even want to think about doing that much time. That's a long time to do. But dog got involved. He jumped out there in the streets. I ain't gonna just absolve the young man of all responsibility. I'm not gonna act like he had nothing to do with it. But you still put a child in this position where, and the fact that they're not getting arrested for child endangerment be the craziest thing. Because another case that I think of, and if this is wrong, and if this is false, and there's more information involved, I don't know why YFN Lucci would push that guy out the car. I don't know exactly what happened, but YFN may have to testify. He may have to actually tell what happened if he has plans on coming home. But I'm not sure what happened or why it happened, but nonetheless, if he is innocent of these accusations and innocent of these charges, then for sure free YFN Lucci. He has a talent people care for. He has a skill set people care for. I'm not gonna say that like I really cared for his music too heavy, but after I heard you just left your dog, it's gonna be tough for me to really listen to what you got to say, because it just told me what kind of person you are. And he was already messing around with Reginae, Lil Wayne's daughter, when she was 19. So you really ain't got no pics. 18, 19, so you really ain't got no pics. You probably was looking before then, truth be told. I always felt like that was weird. I've never looked at Reginae, even though that's not my daughter or nothing. I've never looked at her as like a sex symbol. Now, her mom is amazing. But I never looked at Reginae like that. I just felt like she was too young. It's hard for me to have been a grown man and saw you at 10 years old and now see you years later and still, for me, it's creepy. But it's nothing illegal. It's nothing wrong about it. It's not like he's taking advantage of a child. She is a grown woman, and we don't know what the involvement of Pitts was. Pitts might have jumped out busting. He might have been the first one to do it. He might have been the first one to prove himself. But speaking of a 17-year-old jumping out, there was also a dude named Marlo Mike, who was in connection with Boosie when Boosie got locked up for all of those bodies. That's who testified against Boosie. And he was 17 when he was doing all of this. I even remember him on a song with Boosie called I Did That for the Boss Man. He was like, I'm Marlo Mike. I straight killer N-word and ain't nothing but 17. And this was a while ago, so, he's a grown man. Now, he at least got to be 27 at this point, because I was a shorty when that came out. But it's still nonetheless a true fact that he had this young man doing all of this shooting, all this killing, who even had a tattoo on his stomach said, "Who next, Boosie?" Like, could they be any more could it be any more obvious? And obviously the dude turned on Boosie. Big surprise there. You brought a boy to do a man's job. One, a man shouldn't even be running around killing people, but you brought a boy to do a man's job, though. And you surprised that he flipped on you. The state got him to talk and cooperate against Boosie, and then he decided not to, which apparently is a very common thing. So when you rat and you're forced to have to face that in court, and that person that you ratted on goes to court, they tend to back off of it. To me, that's even more cowardly. That's worse coward than Tekashi. Because at least Tekashi stood on the fact he was a rat. You were trying to keep it quiet and be able to slide your way back into the hood, knowing what you did, knowing what kind of person you was. I was watching a documentary about King Von, like I was telling you about. He apparently got into it. He slid with a dude named Big Mike. Big Mike got caught up on a body, and he testified against Von. Von took it to trial. Big Mike didn't want to testify, so they gave him 40 years. Boy, you might as well have just took that 40 and been a legend. You might as well, if you drilling like they say Big Mike was drilling. But that's not the point. The fact that he testified on, so I guess this would be a story of that backfiring on you and having a child do it. Because if it wasn't for this, and Boosie was even laughing, he was like, when he was talking to Valet, he was like, they had no evidence. They had no proof. It was just him talking. He's a kid. They sat him down and told him he may not even have felt like he was snitching at the time. Well, he had to know. He had to know he was snitching. He had to know he was giving up information to the police. He had to know the code. 17 isn't 7. All right, you still 17. You got plenty enough sense. You knew what you was doing. But still, nonetheless, he told because he's still young and malleable, and he thought about all of that time, and he never really stopped to think of what it would feel like when it all came down. He never stopped to feel like maybe you don't realize that when you're sitting in there and somebody you was doing dirt with isn't, you start to feel a resentment. You start feeling like, well, why they not in here? Why they not helping? Then that breeds that victim mentality. Once you become the victim in your mind, it's going to be tough to pull you back in. Like, you look at C Murder's situation. C Murder, which is, I do believe C Murder should be free. I do believe C Murder should be free by now. Or at least he should do 20. But I don't think he should do the rest of his life in prison. Here's why I say he still should do time. Because when you watch the No Limit Chronicles, I didn't know he was locked up for killing a 17-year-old. See, the thing about it is they was all jumping on this 17-year-old. See Murder pull out a gun and shoots him, allegedly, according to the security who's now going back on his word all these years later, even though he stood by his word time and time again. But I guess now he's ready to recant his story. But regardless, the fact of the matter is true that C Murder was stomping on a 16-year-old boy. I don't know what this boy said to set him off. They really didn't get into it in the Chronicles because, of course, the Miller family runs it all. And they had a whole bunch of drama just behind that show. That brought up some old feelings that I think everybody thought was over with, that they were still feeling. But, C Murder, even if he didn't do it, even if he didn't shoot that 17-year-old boy, even if he didn't shoot that 16-year-old boy, he know who did it because they was all jumping on him. You could have killed them. All you grown men jumping on him could have killed him right then and there. Then you had to see, if all y'all crowding on him, you got to see who pulled out the gun and killed him. Because they jumped him in the middle of a nightclub and somebody pulled out a gun and shot him. C Murder know who did it. Now, I gotta give Corey Miller, C Murder's real name, I gotta give Corey Miller some credit for standing on what he do, because he doing all of this when he could have easily started talking. By now, he could have easily started talking and brought that to an appeal court. But even after all of this time, man, he stuck to the code. He stuck to what he believed in. And to a degree, bro, I just gotta respect it. To a degree, I just gotta respect. He don't really give you much other choice but to respect it. If you stood by what you said, you missing out on millions and millions of dollars, when right now he could easily point the finger and he would still get out the money. He would still get out to an opportunity. He would still get out to a lot. But instead of doing that, man, he's staying loyal. He's staying down. I'm sure whoever shot him is dead or in prison by now they damn self. So he's not doing that guy a favor by not talking. That's just probably his moral compass. But, when you really are that cloth, that's just how it's going to go. But, like I always say, if I give you the good, got to give you the bad. And if I gave you the bad, got to give you the good. There is plenty of people in hip-hop who do bring in young talent, who brings in young people who they mold for the better, even if they come to a tragic loss. Another Louisiana, and I forget what part of Louisiana he's from. I believe it was in South Louisiana. I don't remember the small town it was. But Lil Snoop. Lil Snoop signed to Meek Mills. Lil Snoop talked about signing to Meek Mills, ride with Meek Mills in a Bentley, and they rapping instrumentals, and he telling Lil Snoop, man, I'm going to change your life. This stuff, it's going to be different. I'm finna give you opportunity. I even remember Meek Mills getting tight that Roddy Ricch, 19 years old. He was trying to sign Roddy Ricch when he was 19. He was saying, I'm tired of all they signing these little slave deals. He's trying to do for him what was done. He's trying to do for others what was done for him. And he's one of those examples of people who's trying to really steer the youth right, man. Really teach them about their publishing, really show them different stuff. Really show them, what all this world has to offer and what these record deals can be. He had Lil Snoop battling one of Deshaun Jackson from LA, but he played for the Eagles. I forget who else he played for. I like to say the Rams. But he's from LA, and he had an artist in there that was battle rap, and Meek Mills put up 10 bands for him to battle dude. Lil Snoop battled dude, crushed him. Mind you, this is like a classic video at this point. Crushed dog, and he got to keep the 10 bands. This is him putting you in a position to show your craft and show your skills, because the thing about Lil Snoop, bro, he could freestyle off the top of the dome for hours and hours and hours. He was just dope like that. He had like a real southern flow, man, and he was a talented young man. I think he was still polishing his skills as a songwriter, but the lyrics that he said and the way that he said them, bro, bar none, he was one of the hardest to do it, bro. And then the song called Letter to Nipsey, Meek Mill said, and I ain't on this point, Meek Mill said, every time I close my eyes, he said, and when I think fire, I see blue. And when I close my eyes, I see Snoop and I see you. He was speaking to the now deceased Nipsey Hussle, saying, which I'm sure that went over some people's head when he was like, I see Snoop and I see you, because a lot of people said Nipsey and Snoop Dogg look alike. When he said I see Snoop and I see you, he means the young rapper Little Snoop, not to be confused with Snoop Dogg. But that was a line. That was a line to show that he's still keeping his name alive. He's still, all of these years later, he's always been passionate about it. And I think that this is more key. This is what more young black men need. This is what more young people in period need. Somebody who's in the business of supporting what you got and not looking to use you and take you for granted and take all your talents for granted. So, to answer the question, yes, I do feel like hip-hop takes advantage of young men who needs guidance. But I also think, and just in the last note, I remember being on Facebook, because you got to understand, I'm 32. So the group of people who I follow, like when we started following each other, we was all in our 20s. So now, a lot of those women are like 37, 38 now, because they was like 27, 28 when I started following them. They 37, 38 now, and I noticed they went from being the girls in the nightclub, twerking the Plies, twerking the Boosie, to now saying, hip-hop and NBA Youngboy and Lil Baby got these boys wilding, got these little boys want to be gangsters. And on the same note, that ain't the case. The truth be told, is your son, just like the men that you was dealing with when you was young and wilding, your son's growing into a man. He's feeling things he's never felt. He has certain type of energy about himself. And you're thinking the supply created demand, but in reality, just in capitalism, it just can't work like that. The demand has to create the supply. There was already some young men feeling this way, feeling like they want to prove themselves, feeling that aggression, feeling that anger. And here comes somebody that understands them. Here comes somebody that can really get them. And I believe that's really what hip-hop does. So it has a negative effect, but you also have to remember, for every positive person, for every negative thing, there's some young kid who's playing ball right now. and he listening to Moneybagg Yo on a regular while he out there at the basketball court working on his jump shot that's going to send him to college. Just like there's a young lady who's listening to the City Girls right now, who's twerking and selling her body. There's another young girl listening to it while studying for a nursing exam. So hip-hop is energy, it's enthusiasm. And enthusiasm propels motion. Propelling motion creates habit, and habit creates your destiny. So basically, it's fuel. And how that fuel tends to get interpreted has a lot to do with social, with a person's social status, with a person's upbringing, religion. A lot of stuff goes into it. But it does feed energy, and it does have thoughts into it. So just keep that in mind. When you, especially if you're young and you listen to this right now, keep that in mind when you listen to this music, man. Let it fuel you in the right direction, not the negative direction. And don't be nobody's stool pigeon, huh? Definitely don't be nobody's stool pigeon. But while we speaking of stool pigeons, man, I wanted to talk about, I'll leave the Bow Wow thing for later. I wanted to talk about Meek Mill speaking on the guy who got arrested, the cat that got arrested in the Capitol riotings, who put his feet up, the Arkansas man who put his feet up and at Nancy Pelosi's desk and took her mail and all of that other stuff. I really wanted to speak on him. I wanted to speak on Meek Mill speaking on him, saying that homeboy was arrested in Arkansas and the judge decided that he would not spend his time in jail, that he qualified to be on house arrest. Mind you, this dude is part of political parties, well, not political parties, but just activist parties within Arkansas. So I'm imagining this is a dude who's pretty familiar with his way around. And they said he could serve time in Arkansas. On house arrest. And Meek Mill spoke on that. He said that we fighting our lives just for petty drugs. Like Bootsy say, drugs that you snort with your golf buddies. And like he said, we're doing time for these petty drugs. And this guy ran into a Capitol and he gets to fight on house arrest. Mind you, Meek Mills was put on house arrest for popping a willy. So house arrest isn't necessarily enough. And I didn't bring it up to really talk on him, but also just talk on something where I feel like me and my people, we're not getting the bigger picture here with this riot, man. It's deeper than race. It's just deeper than race. Skip Bayless made a good point. When you're looking at it, we like to say, oh, if these were black people, this would happen. If they was Asian people, they would be called Corona sympathizers. They was Muslim, they'll be terrorist sympathizers. If they were Latino, they'll be against building the wall. There would always be something they would call them. If they was Jewish, I don't know. They'll just call it something. If you look at Antifa got called that. Antifa is I guess it's kind of like anti-Trump supporters, whatever. It means anti-fascist. But nonetheless, one, I'm glad it wasn't something that black people have done. But two, when you look at America, if we could always say one thing, if we could say anything about ourselves, is that we are a democracy. That's the one thing we got going for us. You can't take that. That forever makes it the land of the free, because if you're free to speak, free to vote, then you have freedom. And this crumbles the very freedom that we all know and love. Now, he was speaking on privilege. I don't believe this is white privilege. I believe if anybody would have rented that Capitol, they should have been shot. If anybody, the way the cops dealt with them, and for us to say that it was a completely friendly opportunity, there was a video of a cop who got pinned between the protesters and the door. And people died. Like he said, he did make a good point. He said, and people died in that, even an officer. The minute that officer should have died, that's a homicide investigation. They're looking into that. And we just act like that's one. All four of those homicides on investigation, plus assault on a police officer. All those white people who chased that black man up the stairs, they're going to come out and say that wasn't what we was doing. We was just going up the stairs. They're not going to act like they was chasing him. They're going to get off of that. So I'm not saying there was no racism. This was a white nationalist insurrection. But nonetheless, even though their thinking might have been about race, I don't believe that this was an attack on race. I believe this was an attack on a sign of poor leadership. This was just a sign of poor leadership. This is what happens when you feed one's victim, one's victimhood. So I was watching this thing on Trevor Noah, and it was an old interview, but it was these dudes who used to be in the Klan. And these guys that was in the Klan, they would talk about how you would get somebody to become a white nationalist. The way you get a person to become a white nationalist is by telling them, you know what, Southside Chicago is pretty bad. Yeah. The Muslims they're tough. Mexicans, rapists is a bad thing. And they feed you this, right? They say, what about you though? Those was your jobs. Blacks, they're taking advantage of your tax dollar. They're on your welfare. Even though they're probably talking to a guy that's on welfare themselves. They allowed them to feed this victimhood mentality. They allowed to feed them this thing where the group that believe in pulling yourself up by the bootstraps is playing the violin for a group of people who don't deserve the violin played for them at all. They're misogynists, they're rapists. They're misogynists, they're racist. I didn't mean to say rapists. They're racist, and they're being called out on that. And instead of being being confrontational, and instead of acknowledging what they're saying is wrong, they play what we're victims too, or we're the only victim. And by telling them this victimhood and showing them all this, and it's something that I can't talk them out of. Nobody can talk them out of. By showing them this victimhood, that allows them just to ramp up that anger. They tell them, why not do this then? Join us. We're against this. And they're not really against it. This is all a ploy for money. I think this is the same thing, and this is where I'm going to get killed at. This is where they're going to get me at. But I'm going to say it. I'm going to speak my mind because my mind is mine to speak. This is akin to defund the police. This is akin to that. I'm not for defund the police. Slow cops is better than no cops. We keep talking about the billions. We need more billions for them. We got cops out here getting paid $9.50 an hour. I get paid twice as much as a cop. That's not right. That's not right. These cops have to be given an opportunity to make money. They have to be, and that's without spending money. The correct, because if you increase their pay, ideally, a lot of them is making money off speeding tickets and parking tickets. That they shouldn't have to do stuff like that. And these are these ticket quotas. If there's a law going on, then they have to address it. Now, a lot of things that make them enforce ticket laws, we like to think that that's just a random greedy thing, but that is also calculated when it comes to how many car crashes and accidents and DUIs they see. They see an influx, and they're going to increase the number of tickets you should create because they're saying that it's slipping to a point of lawlessness. If we don't have true control on the road, then like if you ever notice you go down a road and it's a road you always speed now, all of a sudden you see a cop there. That's not random. They realize that people are speeding there. You know how they know people are speeding there? Because that's where the cars are getting flipped over at. That's where it's 4, 5, 7, 6 car pileups. They know what's going on. They know where it's at. And, it's a science to it, bro. It's definitely a science to it all. I don't know how I got onto police and getting their tickets, getting off of this not being about white supremacy, but this has to be, this has to be something that is addressed. This has to be something that is addressed. It was just poor leadership. It was poor leadership. Trump should have been scolded them. Trump was too indifferent. And what the main point I was making was, now that Trump's out of office, Republicans are a necessary part of our country. It's a very necessary part. Because if you're going to have democracy, you have to have a place where other people can come and speak. Other people can come and talk. If you're going to have democracy, you got to have Republican, you got to have Democrat. What is the Republicans' plan now that Trump's gone to convert? Because you're the party of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what your generation is about. Your generation is saying, hey, if you can prove to me, because I'm not saying that it's a generation of inequality. Nah, not generation. I mean generation. that they're a political party of inequality, but it was the one of, if you can show me hard facts, if you can show me hard statistics, not nuanced things, but hard statistics that this is preventing you from getting money and pursuing liberty, then yeah, I change it. But if it doesn't affect what I call liberty and what I call important, which is money, then no, I'm not changing that at all. Yeah, we got stop and frisk. It inconveniences your day. It degrades you. It demeans you. You could be in front of your job and you just get handcuffed in front of all your coworkers and you look like a criminal. Yeah, but it's not costing you any money. You're not going to lose your job for it. You get it. They're not going to think that deep into things. So sometimes that insensitivity kind of led them to be, to be a more cold party that we perceive as a more cold party, a less accepting, a less understanding party. But I don't know how you're going to get back to the old days of pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps if you over here circle jerking with white supremacists. How are they going to rid themselves of that and get back to the principles of being the God-fearing, being, the hard worker, God-fearing party that it was supposed to be, that it looks at itself as? Because you got to understand the people that you have representing it now, I don't believe are already here, was always here. I believe that it has been hijacked by racists and white supremacists, and what are they going to do to be able, because if you look at Republicans, there's Latinos in Republicans, there's a lot of people of color in Republicans that are Republicans, and that doesn't come from anywhere. That doesn't come from self-hate or anything. Their point of view is different. And the qualities and the traditions that they think are more valuable and that they think are more necessary is different than ours. So that's my thing. It's deeper than just white privilege. Is what is this political group as Republicans going to do to, I don't want to say rid themselves of these people, because this is their voting block, and at that point it's up there and it's stuck there. Do you continue to slowly graduate yourself into something that becomes anti-American, that becomes a fascist organization, that becomes a white supremacist group? Because the Republican Party doesn't deserve that. It has a rich history in America, although it has predominantly fought, outside of abolishment of slavery, has predominantly fought for underlying racism. It has always fought for it has had cases of fighting for what is discrimination or fighting against equality, such as affirmative acts, attempts at pushing same-sex marriage, a lot of things that we as Democrats call the right thing to do. They've pushed back on that, or at least needed so much evidence and had such an impossible bar to reach that it seemed like it was just a hard no. But nonetheless, it was still at least morality. It was still, if you can prove it to me, it's wrong. And now you got Republicans who's just not voting against Trump right now. 197 said, yeah, let's keep him there after a riot, after they ran for their lives against his base. His base does not believe in what you believe in. They only voted because Trump knew how to play and tap into that audience. I think the Republican Party would be better off without it. I think it has to get back closer to the center, because that was one thing about the right. It was closer to the center. It wasn't the Tea Party like what you see these people doing now. It was a little more closer to the center. But only time will tell. The left has gone very far with, to defund the police. There's a lot of ideas on the left that's really getting more and more radical, but I think raiding the Capitol is the most radical you can get. I don't think there's anything you can point at and say, no, that's a little different. That's different. You can't count that. You can't get too much more words than not just raiding the Capitol, but raiding Capitol on the one day they're counting votes. They only do this once every 4 years. The one day they count the presidential votes. The president led a march onto the Capitol. That only happened one time in our history. So that's it. But whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think we can all agree Bow Wow sucks. I think we can all agree Bow Wow's a good rapper. Bow Wow's a good musician. And it's crazy to watch. You know, we look at Drake and people tell me all the time, man, you know, Drake's going to be remembered forever. No one's going to forget a time when this guy was this big, he was this great, he was this amazing. I remember Bow Wow was bigger than what Drake is right now. Every girl had a Bow Wow shirt. Every girl, let me be clear. Every teenage girl, I wasn't an adult when Bow Wow was popping, neither was he. So, you know, I want to say every young girl, especially every young black girl, he was a heartthrob. He was the first young black heartthrob that I can remember. You feel me? And it wasn't an R&B artist. It was a hip-hop artist. And the ladies just loved him. And they all had on little Bow Wow t-shirts. They had Bow Wow posters. He was just all the rave. Well, nowadays, I can't really say the same. Bow Wow just did a show out in Houston. And he's getting a lot of criticism for being in a packed club that doesn't wear masks. None of these people had on a mask. None of these people was looking to even sort of kind of act like they were, you know, like, no, man, I left it out in the car. You sure? I don't need to go back and get it? Nah, they was just like, we in here, we're partying, no mask on. And it's 2021, and people kind of feel like, well, I did all of this with no mask. What's the problem? Where are we going here as a country? Well, here's the thing, and look, I got my mask right here. Don't think I'm saying preaching what I'm not talking. Now I'm talking something that, or preaching something that I'm not living. I got my mask right here. But we act like that's not, like this coronavirus hasn't mutated, bro. We thought we was gonna wake up December 21st with mutant powers. The rest of the world, Corona only thing that when it got mutant powers. Corona done mutated into something different, man, and they saying it's easier to spread, a super spreader. You know, these people are super spreaders, man. So they really getting that Bow Wow in Houston. They really getting that, they got that NBA young boy for also doing a concert. I believe it was like 6,000 people. I believe he did, not 6,000, it was like 2,000 people in attendance with NBA young boy. This one might have been a couple hundred people. But it's still about Weezy. They showed up to hear Bounce With Me. But no, shows is open. These artists are opening up shows. They doing half capacity. They taking half of their rate. And, you know, these dudes is taking what they can get, man. They're taking what they can get. The 85 South show, I just watched them do a show out in Boston. They just did one in Boston. And that thing looked packed wall to wall like ain't nothing stopped. Like the game don't change, man. It's crazy. It is crazy out here. So, man, you want to make sure you definitely being safe around here. But they was killing Bow Wow for being out there without a mask on. Now, that nobody cared nothing about what Bow Wow was doing before he decided to not wear a mask. Now, all of a sudden, we super outraged about Weezy. It's crazy. What else do I want to talk to y'all about? There's Rick Ross. Rick Ross has he's currently invested into a healthcare thing, into a healthcare program where he invested $1 million. And here's what's interesting about this is that it's supposed to be able to give you visits to a doctor's, well, not to a doctor's office, but like a live video visit, kind of like Talkspace, but for doctor visits. I think there's already a few things that's like that, but he's going to make that. He's going to make something for doctor visits. And he's invested $1 million and you subscribe to this. So this is for people who can't find health care, with Obamacare looking like none of these Republicans are trying to take it to the next level. But Biden is coming into office. So I don't know if this is a good thing for him, if maybe, because this is a startup company. It's something new. It's already, he's linked to an entrepreneur who's already done this and been doing this for a while. I don't question Ross's business acumen, but, hopefully this is more Meek Mills and less Stally, right? Because he got Meek popping. I don't know about Stally. Why do you think Stally didn't work? Anybody think they know why? Why didn't Stally pop off? He was a decent guy. He was like a decent enough rapper. Do you think that's just what it was? He didn't have like an interesting, compelling story? Because his songs like, well, who is he? He's just a guy with a humongous beard. right? We didn't really know who he was. No story actually developed about who he was. He called himself Blue Collar Gang. Like, I don't know what he thinks is interesting about that, but another thing, my last thing before I get up out of here and get y'all up out of here. We gotta talk about Trump is looking to pardon. They say he has a list over 100 people that he's gonna pardon tomorrow, January 19th. On January 19th, his last full day in office, Trump is going to unleash the horns on him, Guru. He's going to unleash the horns. They're talking about he's going to do political allies. He's going to do people that he's done got money with, that he get business with, that he gets busy with. People he done dropped bombs with, people who he done sold bombs with. And Lil Wayne, which is funny because I was thinking about it when he was on the phone with the person who counts the votes in Georgia. He was like, I won the military vote, which I didn't even know there was a military vote. But he said, I won the military vote in Fulton County. I'm pretty sure I won the military vote in Fulton County. I think they're straightening up ballots because they said I had 100%, and now it turned into an impossible number. Okay, so he's saying he had 100%. And the first thing I thought about, I was like, he probably was saying to himself, I was endorsed by Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne assured me, Cash Money is an army. He assured me Cash Money is an army. And I just assumed they were stationed in Atlanta. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, but, apparently, Cash Money is an army. And despite Trump not getting the military vote, he's still going to pardon Lil Wayne. And, apparently, that's what they're saying, allegedly. We're going to have to see tomorrow. Who does he pardon? Who does he keep? Who does he help? It's up in the air. He waited till the last minute to do it. He doesn't have to wait till the last day. He doesn't actually have to wait till the last day. That's the craziest thing. So, I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about who Trump is going to pardon, I want to talk about who Obama has pardoned, right? It gets kind of crazy. I'm not going to go through all of it. I just want you to show you the trend of what starts to happen, right? So in the beginning, he's pardoning people, and it's not crazy. Mind you, he gets in office in January of 2009. The first pardon listed here is in December 3rd, 2010. So he waited almost 2 years. Halfway through his first term, to start giving out some clemency, to start giving out some pardons and whatnot. So this is a partial list of people pardoned and granted clemency by the United States President, ordered under the pardon ordered by date of pardon. So pretty much his was the first person that he pardoned was a guy named James Banks, who was sentenced in 1972 for illegal possession of government property. There was Russell Dixon in 1960. Mind you, see how long ago this was? He violated liquor law violations in 1960. I'm sure those are pretty steep. Ronald Foster in 1963, who manipulation of coins. So I don't know what he was doing, but he got him off with probation and a $20 fine from something he got sentenced in 1963. Another guy from 1982. In 1986, they were definitely in the streets. He had a few people that was in the streets. Another one from 1991 that was arrested for counterfeiting offenses. But you see how in the beginning it's pretty mild cases, man. Let me see what else we got. A guy from 1991 named Michael Neal for manufacturing, assembly, modification, and distribution of equipment for unauthorized decryption of satellite cable programming. So this guy was running some bootleg programming. Another one, transferring a firearm without payment of transfer taxes. Now, he starts getting a little more liberal. a little bit more. First, he's doing it light. Now he says another dude, conspiracy to distribute less than 50 kilograms of marijuana. I didn't know they weigh marijuana by kilograms. Another one, aiding and abetting the possession and sale of American alligator hides. This was back in 1985. That was by a dude named Buddy Wilson. Buddy Wilson from South Georgia. From South Georgia, he was selling alligators. Of course, Billy Wilson was selling alligators in 1985. He was the Gator King. He was the Gator God. No Tiger King, he was the Gator God. Like, but as you see how light these charges is, and this is all the stuff he's doing in his first term, man. He's keeping it cool. Conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute in excess of 1,000 pounds of marijuana. He's starting to get more into this marijuana bag, right? You know, aiding and abetting in the manufacturing of 61, aiding and abetting of the manufacture of 61 marijuana plants. I don't know how much money 61 marijuana plants make, but, you know, another one, conducting and directing an illegal gambling business. A dude named Thomas Ford. This is in East Tennessee back in 1995. But when you start going through here, like, you can get to the point. He has aided and abetting the theft of our interstate shipment. Look, white collar crimes, man, super white collar crimes, right? We in 2013. All this stuff is fine. Let me show you who he started freeing. On June 3rd, on this day, Obama announced he would be commuting the sentence of 42 offenders. So now he's super getting people out of prison. Eric Alvarez, time served. He already did 360 days, 30 years in prison, 5 years of supervision release. He was in there for distribution of cocaine and cocaine base, basically saying for crack and drug laws. Another one was serving life in prison and 10 years supervision. Dale Baldwin, conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute cocaine base. And before that, he did another brother. Listen, this guy right here, this guy Clarence Aaron, I'm finna tell you what they hit him with. Listen to it. Conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute cocaine base, possession with intent to distribute cocaine, attempt to possess cocaine with intent to distribute. Enormously listed in the judgment as conspiracy to distribute cocaine. I see. Listen, they gave dog life in prison. All he did was hustle. But none of these are violent crimes. Listen, conspiracy to distribute cocaine with an enhanced penalty, distribute of 50 grams or more of cocaine base. And they gave dog life back in 1990. Roy Larry Lee. Of course they gave Roy Larry Lee, you know, that much time. That's crazy. That's unheard of. That's berserk. So the whole point that I'm making here, because I know I read a lot of that, the whole point I'm making is you see how he went from in the beginning doing like slight white collar crimes to eventually, as he hit his second term, he just started freeing all the dope boys. He freed all the kingpins. Everybody doing 30, 25. He kept his word. So don't ever say he didn't do anything for black people. Because I'm sure Trump gonna be like, I freed Lil Wayne. I freed Wayne. Like, this is Wayne's second gun charge. He ain't learned by now. Wayne ain't shooting nothing anyway. What the hell he got a gun for? Wayne don't even come off as a third person who slide nobody's block. But, you know, once again, we're going to see who all he pardons, who all he lets out. This pardon may be a little more trouble than it's worth. Because I don't know if people are able to veto it. I don't know if if a president that's on that second impeachment and probably ducking an indictment is gonna ironically probably get stopped at the wall for trying to sneak into Mexico is gonna really stand up. I don't know how that pardon works, but they say for sure after the riot he's not pardoning himself, so he at least gotta stand on it. But he might stand for it. I don't know why he waited so long. I don't know why he would wait till Tuesday, just in case nothing works out or something's wrong with the paperwork. you can't send it back in. You know, it's too late now. So hopefully he doesn't forget your name and he has you written down for clemency. If not, hey, keep your head up, man. It's heaven for a G. Hopefully they don't get your life like they gave Eric Alvarez here, because you're going to have to wait till an Obama get in office to get out of prison. But until then, it's your boy Dapper Don.